Hey guys, I'm Mike, and this is an intro. Alright, since I'm pretty much snowed in at home with absolutely nothing to do because of a freak snowstorm, which wouldn't have been so freak if I actually looked at the weather, live and learn, I decided to sit down and finally do Marchesa. And I ran into a slight problem. The first being that I've looked for her card before, and out of the 3 shops near my house, yeah, got 3 shops, actually really nice ones too, but they don't have the card. And I really didn't understand why until I started really looking into how to build her, and it's kind of obvious. She's insane. It's really hard not to build a good Marchesa deck, which is actually kind of bad because any good Marchesa deck can rip someone's face off. And I am not exaggerating nearly as much as I would like to say that. And because I wanted this to be more of a casual type of Marchesa deck, I was actually kind of struggling with that because if you build around her traits in the slightest, you're going to kill someone really easy, and it's not going to be casually fun. She's just good. For those of you who don't know, I'm sorry I can't put the card up. I might put it with an image on this, but yeah. She has Dethrone, which means whenever she attacks the person who has the most life or tied for the most, she gets a counter. She gives that to all of your creatures when they attack. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter dies, at the end of turn, she brings it back. Yeah. She buffs your guys, she saves their guys, and just on her own, she buffs herself as a general in EDH. Yeah, she's very good. So to build around her, though, I put up together a few cards. This is not going to be the full deck. It's not going to be a budget deck. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. Some cards are more expensive, most aren't. A lot of these cards are going to be just for fun. I'm not going to put in the really expensive, really aggressive variants either, but there are going to be a few cards that run into combos, just because I enjoy playing combos. Personal taste. And a lot of these cards, I'm going to even mention a few things that you could replace them with that might be more to your taste. Just going to say it right now, if there's any card that has Arcbound in it, it works with Marchesa. And yeah, any card that was green or white would work with her even better, but she's not green or white. She's Grixis. Not bad colors, but if they had put her in either of those colors, she'd be even more broken than she is now. Green and white have so many counter abilities, it's insane. And since apparently those are the 2 card colors I love playing the most of my cards that would really break her, I can't use. A little annoyed at that. But yeah, without further ado, I'm going to jump into the deck. First up are going to be the creature cards that I used just to, have fun. First up, let's see if I can zoom in a little. Yeah, that's zooming in a little, only a little. Yeah, hopefully the editing makes this better. Rakdos Cackler. Now this is going to be one of a few cards like this. They're not exceptionally powerful on their own, but with Unleash they come in with a +1/+1 counter. Yeah, they can't block, but really, giving Marchesa someone who can instantly come back and can just keep wailing on your opponents right away for a 1-drop is pretty good. Similar to why I have Carnival Hellsteed. First Strike, Haste, and Unleashed. Now it's a 6-drop, but it's a 6-drop for First Strike, Haste, 6/5 when it has Unleash. With Marchesa, if it dies, it just comes back, which makes it even better just to beat someone's face in. Generator Servant. Actually, I just have this card in here because it's an excuse to have this guy in here. He taps, sacrifice himself, add 2 colorless mana, and whoever it's spent on for a creature gets haste. For a 2-drop, I work this card into any deck I can. He's just that good. Volcano Hellion, a 4-drop that lets you pay X, where X is your life total. Or that's the echo cost. X, where X is your life total. Yeah. But what's important, the echo doesn't matter, is that he's a 6/5 for 4, and when he enters the battlefield, or comes into play, whatever, it deals an amount of damage of your choice to target creature. That damage can't be prevented. Wait, what? Your life total? Huh. Oh, I read this card wrong. Oh, to you and... Okay. Before I kind of... Basically, it does damage to you and target creature of your choice. So it comes in and it'll torch a creature for you. but it also tortures you in the process. Normally, I don't like this card because it hurts you and it's just not worth it. Marchesa needs to have less life for her to work with the throne. This guy gives you less life and takes out a threat. It does two things you need, and it's a 6/5, so it's, not bad. Treasonous Ogre. How do I say that? This card is so stupidly good. 4-drop that gives you red mana for 3 life loss. And it has the throne on its own, but really, you're not attacking with the guy. You are going to make this guy just really good because you're going to drop your life, you're going to get red mana, you're going to speed up your deck, and if you attack with him enough, he's just a threat on his own because he's a 2/3 to start, so he has decent toughness. It just gets better. Perfect for this deck. Marchesa Smuggler. Another card with the throne, but he's a 2-drop 1/1, and the reason I love this card is because for 3, is it colors and a colorless, target creature you control gains haste until end turn and can't be blocked. Giving Marchesa haste and then unblockable with someone who's just... This and Marchesa on their own is probably a win condition, given enough time. The fact that it has to throne and it can hurt itself or opponents more is great. The fact that you can give it to anyone and it's not a tap ability, you can use it right away. It just solves so many problems. Hound of Grizzlebrand, another good 4-drop, this one with Undying. It's a 2/2 double striker for 4. Not that great. But when it dies, it gets a +1/+1 counter. If Marchesa's out, she'll save it the second time. And if it dies again, it comes back without one. Then it dies, gets the Undying, comes back with one. Basically, with Marchesa out, this guy doesn't leave the field until you exile him. He's just so freaking good. And because it's double strike, if you start really adding up the +1 counters, he becomes a game ender actually really quickly, if not a giant beatstick. And then there's Chaos Imp. Or Imps. 6-drop, a little expensive, but good. Flying, Unleash, so it gets the counter that Marchesa can save him. And it has Trample, which is weird for a flyer. I never understood that flavor-wise, but it works, yeah. So you get a really good flying, trampling creature that could possibly end the game if it attacks enough with the throne. Demon Lord of Ashmouth. I always feel like there should be a "the" there. Flying, when it enters, you have to sack a creature and Undying. So it'll save itself with Marchesa out and double without it. Reverse that. Save itself without her, double with her. It gets bigger because of counter shenanigans. Oh, I just went unfocused. Wow. I have no idea what's up. Huh. Wow, I am sorry, guys. This is weird. Okay, this is a new camera. Yeah, it's supposed to be better, so I hope you'll forgive me about this. Basically, he saves himself and forces you to sack someone. Normally, I don't like him again for that reason. But for a 5/4, potential 6/5, potentially huger with the throne, and the fact that you're going to get whatever you sack back because of Marchesa, it actually becomes much more useful, much quicker. Tarfiend. 6-drop, a little expensive, but not bad for what it does. Devour. Lets you sack a bunch of creatures. With Marchesa, you're probably going to keep them at the end of turn. But when it comes into play, target player discards a card for each creature it devoured. This is so good against any deck that has an opponent playing it. Yeah. Now, you can only do it to target player, so you can't do it to everyone on the field. But it's going to get huge. It's going to hit someone hard, and it's going to make it so they can't respond and that they're pretty much stymied with any response. And the fact with Marchesa, anything it devours will probably come back. Yeah. This won't end the game, but it's going to make it impossible for your opponent to really respond in any meaningful way. Pentivus. Okay, the next 3 cards, I'm just going to put them out now. Triskelion, Triskelivus, Pentivus. I have them here because they all come in with +1/+1 counters. These first 2 are a little less broken than Triskelion. Okay, just went on... Okay, they're not focused again. Weird. 1 second, guys. I am not sure what's up with this. While this focuses... Oh, there it goes. That was fast that time. Okay. Sorry about this weird camera. New setup, whatever. Pentivus. Basically, it's a sack engine. If I get some way to sack it, I get it back really quickly. More importantly, I can remove +1/+1 counters from it to add a 1/1 colorless creature artifact token. And it gets a, that's more creatures, and this guy will die whenever he has no counters. So basically, what I want to do is, for some reason, get him down to 1, send him out to die, and get him back with all the full counters from Marchesa. And I get all those creatures out, so I quickly build an army with him. Similar to Triskelius. Triskelion, though, as long as I just keep killing him right after I lose 2 of the counters, that's like a good way to say I do 2 damage to target creature or player every turn. Which isn't a lot, and it's not broken, but the constant nature of it means that I can whittle away someone's life or their creatures or a threat, and I'm in pretty good shape. Alright? I'm going to say this wrong. Norwegian Sages. It's a 6-drop, a little expensive, but it has graft. So it comes in with 4 counters, which means Marchesa will save it right away. It can give counters to other creatures, which means she can save them right away, and I pay 1, remove 2 +1/+1 counters from among creatures I control, which, if she's running with any other creatures on the field, that could easily be done. I draw a card. So it makes it so I can save creatures, puts more creatures out that I can put more counters on by giving them graft, spraying around the counters, and the part I love, it lets me draw cards, so if I have a problem with my hand size emptying out, this fixes it really quickly. Yeah. Next up. Now, kick it in the camera. Champion of Stray Souls, and the thing's going blurry again. Again, hope you forgive me for the camera, still getting used to the new one. Champion of Stray Souls. Another 6-drop. You're probably going to see a bunch of those. This one, though, yeah, there's the 7 ability where you put it on top of your library from your graveyard, so you get it back. But more importantly, you pay 5 and tap this guy and sacrifice X other creatures to return X target creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. With Marchesa, the X you sacrifice will stick around, and the X you get back will come back. She basically makes it so for 5, you can mass reanimate almost every turn without any real loss other than 5 mana. This guy is broken because of her. Now, it's still a high cost card. It's going to cost 5 to use his ability. It's going to cost 6 to get him out. You got to wait a turn to do it. But if you have the mana, and you should, because I can't show it in this deck because I'll just put it on the YouTube link. It'll be at the bottom in the description. I'll be filling this thing out with artifacts, and if you have better ways, go for it. Mana really makes this deck work better, and artifacts are massive. But this guy breaks it because he keeps your creatures around. Speaking of creatures, Conquering Manticore. Whenever he enters the battlefield, basically you steal the creature until end of turn, untap it, and it has haste. This guy can't be saved right away by Marchesa. But he will steal a creature, which is good. Again, but what you're going to want to do is put a counter on that creature that you attack with. Attack the player with the throne, and then after he gets the counter, find some way to kill the creature. You get it. Yeah, that's part of the thing. It returns it to your control. Not your opponent's control. It comes to your control. So you steal it, and it stays around on your field after that. And once this guy attacks himself in the next turn, hopefully with the throne, then give him a counter, you can start doing little shenanigans with him because he'll re-enter for that. Also for the same plan with Mindclaw Shaman, except instead of stealing creatures, you get to play an instant sorcery card from your opponent's hand without paying its mana cost when he enters. The goal with him is to just keep attacking with him, keep letting him die because he's only a squishy 2/2. You're not going to want him to get big, which if he does, great, but you're going to want to keep him dying and coming back with the throne so you can keep casting things out of your opponent's hand, denying it to them, and using against them what they were probably going to hurt you with. There's no downside to that, other than the fact that he's a 5-drop. But once you get past that, he works really well with her. And then there's Marchesa the Unhallowed. Yeah, he basically covers for Marchesa's blind spot of when you don't have a counter. As long as it's not human, he will automatically undie anything. Or, well, let me rephrase that. All non-human creatures you control, other than Marchesa, have undying. When they die without a +1/+1 counter, they come back with 1. So that when he can't save them, she will, and when she can't save them, he will. Oh, and whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. That's good against a human in general, or any human cards, but not perfect. That last ability, the other non-humans get undying, that's amazing. Oh, and he has Intimidate, which is good, but considering how common black is in generals, that's less amazing. And he's a 6-drop, but at the same time, the fact that he covers for Marchesa's blind spot breaks so many cards. Cough, cough, Triskelion. Yeah, it's the infinite combo. It's mostly there in case the game goes too long. But all the same, he works really well with these decks. And Magus of the Mirror. With either Machias or, Marchesa out, this guy becomes a little more dangerous because sacrifice Magus of the Mirror. Exchange life totals with target opponent. You can only activate his ability during your upkeep. The reason the other guys make it good is because to activate the throne, you need to have less life. So you're going to have an army. But you're going to have an army that's protecting you from dying because you're going to be really close to it most of the time. This guy switches your life with target opponent. Chances are this is going to really work out in one of two ways. Either it's going to be saving you from dying when someone tries to hit you and you just can't block enough, or it's going to get you from being near dead to putting the opponent near dead when you have an army and they've just been going most likely Voltron. So you can run around them and just if a few creatures hit, they die. It's a good, just a switch around to the end of the game. That, and, if he has for any reason a +1 counter on him, Marchesa can save him and you can pull this shenanigan off more times. Similar to Rexiel. He's actually just here because he's a big beat stick. He's a 6-drop, don't really like the cost, but he has Island Walk and Swamp Walk, and whenever he deals damage, combat damage to a player, you may cast target instant or sorcery card from that player's graveyard, without paying its mana cost. You have to exile the card, but being able to abuse the opponent's graveyard is useful. The fact that he's a 5/8 that can't be blocked if you have an opponent with islands or swamps is good. And Marchesa keeps him around, which is also useful, but he's mostly here because he's a beat stick who fits in the colors, and he can give you advantages from the opponent's graveyard. Not fitting theme, but his utility alone makes him very useful. And Ob. This guy I'm actually a little iffy on in this deck. Now, I like that his landfall puts the 3 counters on him, so Marchesa will auto-save him. And I really like how he turns every single one of your land drops, which you should have a few, because this is the deck that needs artifacts and lands to really get mana base. But if you have a better choice, go with him. This guy works because he gives you utility of the 3 damage, the counters, and makes all your land drops more useful. It's like a lightning bolt every turn. Oh, and he hits harder too, which, is not bad. He's good. He's not the best choice, but he's very good because he just does what you need. Alright, that's the first group of cards, the creatures. Next up, I have 2 more divisions that you can see up here. The first one is going to be things that just help the deck run. Speed it up, make it a little better, and it just went blurry again. Okay. And then up here are the cards that are going to be win conditions and things that will swing the game in your favor almost completely. But I'll get to that next. First up, Phyrexian Arena. For 3, you get an extra card draw each turn, and you lose life, which in this deck is a good thing. So it fits what you need, gives you options, and it doesn't help your opponents, which some other cards, Howling Mine might. Murderous Betrayal, a 3-drop with a 2 activation cost of pay half your life, pay 2 black, destroy target non-black creature, it can't be regenerated. Normally I avoid this card like the plague because it will do as much damage to your health as the plague. You're going to only be able to use this a few times before you will be easily killed by a shock. That said, you want to use it a couple times to get your life down so you aren't going to be on the throne, which is bad. And the fact that you can destroy target non-black creature is also really nice. Granted, limited utility because a lot of good generals are black, or have black in their cost. But all the same, it's very useful for spot removal that you absolutely need. Tezzeret's Gambit. I'm not going to pretend that you're going to pay the blue to this. You shouldn't pay the blue to this. The life loss is useful. The fact that it proliferates, adds counters, or lets you choose to add another counter of the type that's out, but it's going to be the +1 counters on you and any negative counters on your opponents. And the fact that you draw 2 cards. It does 3 things, and all 3 of them help you. And it's a 3-drop. I'm, again, not counting the blue mana cost because you're just going to pay the life. It's perfect for this deck. Similar to Sign in Blood. Pay 2 black, pay 2 life, draw 2 cards. Now, it's target player, but let's be honest, you're going to use this on you. You want the cards, you want the life loss. And greed. Pay 2 life, pay a black, draw a card. The 2 life, again, is useful. The card draw it's freaking card draw. That's always good. And the black you're going to have enough, because once you have your creatures out, you're not going to repay them, and a lot of abilities are enter the battlefield, which Marchesa breaks. This gives you something to do late game and mid game, and heck, even early game if you need the possibilities. Ad nauseum. Okay, this card it's in here because it'll fill up your hand, and it'll help you lose life. But it's a 5-drop, so it's not early game if you don't have a really good mana base or artifact base. And you can't take too many cards because there's a lot of high cards in this. You're only going to get maybe 3 or 4 out of this before you kind of have to slow down. It's not safe to use this card a lot. It's not going to be a huge change. That said, if you happen to go through a lot of lands, it will cycle you through a lot of lands until you get to really high cost cards again, which you will want. Not a perfect card, not a great card, but it puts things in your hands, it helps you get rid of chunks, which might do a lot of damage to what you can do. And, I just kind of like the card in general. Personal choice, of course. Unlike Lim-Dûl's Vault, which is practically perfect. It's a 2-drop. It's instant. Technically, Ad nauseam was 2, but yeah. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. As many times as you choose, you may pay 1 life. Useful. Put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order. Then look at the top 5 cards of your library. Then, shuffle your library and put the last cards you looked at this way on top of it in any order. Basically, for 2, you can look at the 5 cards, scry them, and put them back in any order. If you don't like them, do it again. Because you want less life, you're going to want to do it a few times. And because it lets you choose the next 5 cards you draw, you're going to do it until the card you want, or maybe a group of cards you want, are going to be on top. It sets you up, and it puts you in a good position to use the throne. It is so perfect for this deck. It's perfect. It does exactly what you need. It's low cost, and it does it well. Victimize. Pay 3, sack a creature, get 2 creatures back from your graveyard. With Marchesa, the card you sack is going to stick around at the end of turn. It basically lets you get things back that she wasn't able to save. And, for a 3-drop, it's not bad. Similar to Dread Return. Yeah, the 4-drop return target creature card from your graveyard to play is nice, but the flashback of sack 3 creatures, you're going to keep those creatures with Marchesa, and you're going to get an extra one back, so it's even better. That and, it's just an awesome card. Contagion Engine. Now, this is one of the alternate ways to really start buffing it up. On the one hand, the -1 on target creature or all target creatures target player controls is useful. The fact that you can pay 4 and proliferate that twice is useful. The fact that it can change your little army that Marchesa controls into something much bigger after a couple turns could end the game, or just really, really, really screw over the opponent. It can go a lot of ways, but it's so useful, you don't want to lose this out. Okay, now the altars. Technically there's a 3rd one, but I don't actually know where I put that one. Couldn't find it. Okay, my thing just went fuzzy again. Excuse me a second, I'm seeing if I can get this thing to zoom in. Okay, it's again, I know I've said it a few times, I hope you'll forgive the fuzziness. New camera. It's working well overall. Phyrexian Altar and Ashnod's Altar. Phyrexian gives colorless when you sack colored mana when you sack a creature, and Ashnod's Altar gives colorless, but 2 of it when you sack a creature to it. With sacking abilities, you're going to get them back. The fact that it gives you mana means you can play through things better, which is good because there's a lot of high-cost creatures. Both of these will help you. Both of them are good. Both of them are relatively small cost of 3. And since you're going to get things back, there's really no downside to them. And Cauldron of Souls. Now this one puts a -1/-1 counter on any creature that dies. Specifically, tap it, choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persist until end of turn. Now technically you can also use it to bribe opponents into keeping their things alive. But realistically, what you're going to do is use it on your creatures as an alternative in case Marchesa can't save someone. This is an instant grab so that you get them back if you need them. And now Marchesa will take 2 attacks before she'll get them back to saving them herself, or 1 so you can use this again. It just gives you options if she's not working quite well right away. Alright, those were the cards that might really swing the game in your favor, and usually will. Next up are the cards that will swing the game in your favor, almost regardless. They're also kind of dickish. Hope you'll forgive me for that. And it just blurred again. And the magic card we have here is... Ooh, went fast that time. Inexorable Tide. It gives all spells proliferate, or whenever you cast a spell, proliferate. There's a few other cards that had proliferate, so I already explained it, but this is so broken. There's so many ways to break this, and Marchesa isn't actually the most broken use of it. Which is kind of weird, because she breaks a lot of other things. But it can make any amount of army you have with counters much bigger, much faster, much more repeatedly. And it can win the game. Grave Pact. Things are going to be dying left and right on your field. This makes it hurt your opponents. Also, the same reason I have Dictate of Erebos. Now, it costs one more, but it's less restrictive on color because it only has 2 black and it has flash. So you can screw over your opponent when they're not planning for it, which I'm a little biased. I like hurting my opponents when they're not expecting it because it's hard for them to respond. Grave Betrayal. Whenever a creature you don't control dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with a +1/+1 counter at the beginning of the next end step. Then a creature is a zombie in addition to its other types and colors. Or black zombie. It steals creatures that dies and puts a counter on it so that when they die again, you keep them. How is this not the perfect card for Marchesa? It literally says, don't let your opponents lose creatures or they are yours. It is... I don't know what to say. It is just really perfectly set to her. It is like they built this card around her. Or vice versa because this came out first. But yeah! It works. If you have her, having this is not bad, especially since a 7-drop might be expensive, but with the altars, it's useful. And with artifacts, also useful. Repay in kind. This is going to be one of the ways to end the game. Each player's life total becomes the lowest life total among all players. You use this when you're so close to death that you've burned yourself so badly that you're going to die right away. And it just happens to be your turn, and it just happens to be that you have a nice, large, buffed-out field, and everyone else is on the verge of death too now. You're going to use this, and you're going to win the game because no one else is going to be able to block, and they can't absorb the hit. Blood Artist. A 2-drop, 0/1, and yeah, he can probably get bigger with Death Dethrone, but whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Ironically enough, the gaining 1 life might be what screws you over. But if you're going to do something like just continually burn yourself, and then, with the Ogre, burn yourself to kill creatures with the artifact altars, and then just put counters on them, this thing doesn't combo out in this deck perfectly. But it hurts your opponents, and it'll hurt them frequently because you're going to have things dying. And it's any creature, not just yours. So every time something dies, something is going to get burned. Someone is going to get hurt. And yeah, you're going to heal yourself. Not great, but at the same time, it's not bad to have the possibility of doing that in this deck. He's not a win condition, but he's so close, he will always be useful. Soul Conduit. 2 target players exchange life totals. It's a 6-drop with 6 activation. And a tap. So you can only use it once a turn unless you have some kind of tap effects in there or untap. I don't run them in this deck, but if you have them, great. You're going to be screwing over your life total really frequently. In exchange, you can screw someone else over. And since you don't have to sack this thing, which I like, you can use it the next turn, or after you really kill yourself down again. It just makes it so you can screw around with someone's life. Makes it so they can't predict what you're going to do. Or more precisely, they'll predict easily what you're going to do, and they're just going to get burned by it. Alright, that was Marchesa. If you like this deck, leave a like.